Let's not sugarcoat it. What we just witnessed in Atlanta was nothing short of controversial. The Indiana Fever, written off by analysts, mocked for their injuries, and dismissed as an easy stepping stone for the Atlanta Dream, just pulled off the kind of playoff victory that changes legacies. But here's the burning question. Did Indiana truly outplay Atlanta, or did the Dream choke away an opportunity they should have seized? That debate is raging across the WNBA community tonight. What can't be debated is this. Indiana walked into a hostile arena with 6 players sidelined, including Caitlin Clark, and still clawed their way to their first playoff series win in a decade. Imagine that. 10 years of waiting, 10 years of frustration, 10 years of being labeled irrelevant in postseason conversations. And in one night, one gut-check performance, that narrative got torn apart, with emotions running high. The Fever didn't just beat Atlanta, they defied every odd stacked against them. This wasn't just a basketball game, it was survival, it was history, and it was a team announcing to the league that they're done being overlooked. Think about this for a moment. Nearly 10 years without winning a playoff series. That's not just a stat, it's a shadow that lingers over every practice, every offseason, and every player who dares to put on that Fever jersey. The last time Indiana reached this far, Tamika Catchings was still the heartbeat of the franchise. That was 2015 before super teams dominated the headlines, before the WNBA exploded into the cultural spotlight we see today. For fans, this drought wasn't just painful, it was humiliating. You watch your team grind year after year, only to be reminded of past glory with nothing new to celebrate. But against Atlanta, all of that history was on the line. Indiana wasn't just playing to win a game, they were playing to snap a decade of disappointment. And when that final buzzer sounded, the weight lifted. The Fever weren't defined anymore by what they hadn't done. They became the team that ended a 10-year curse. The kind of breakthrough that makes a franchise believe again, that makes fans believe again. And for the players themselves, it's validation proof that all those losing seasons, all the criticism, and all the rebuilding finally meant something. Kelsey Mitchell wasn't just Indiana's leading scorer in this decisive game. She was the heartbeat, the steady pulse that kept them alive when everything threatened to collapse. Imagine this, you're on the road in a win-or-go-home game. The opposing crowd is roaring for your downfall, and Atlanta's defenders are swarming you every time you touch the ball. Most players would shrink under that pressure, but Mitchell thrived. She dropped 24 points, and what's even more remarkable, 19 of those came before halftime. That first-half explosion didn't just put numbers on the board, it sent a message. Indiana would not be intimidated, even when Atlanta loaded the paint, even when they doubled her off screens. Mitchell kept attacking, and here's what makes her performance stand out. It wasn't just scoring. She was blocking shots, finding open teammates, and keeping possessions alive. Every time Atlanta tried to rattle her, she responded with composure. For a team missing 6 key players, Mitchell's resilience was the glue holding everything together. Without her relentless push, the Fever don't even get to the final minutes with a chance. Her leadership wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, it was unbreakable. And in playoff basketball, that's the difference between elimination and survival. If Kelsey Mitchell was the pulse of Indiana's offense, then Aliyah Boston was the anchor that held the team's foundation together. Let's be clear, this wasn't an easy matchup. Boston was tasked with going head-to-head against Bree Jones, a player with size, strength, and playoff experience on her side. On paper, that looked like an advantage for Atlanta. But what happened on the court told a very different story. Boston absorbed every hit, every shove in the post, and she never once lost her composure. She finished with 14 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists. A stat line that looks impressive enough, but it still doesn't capture the full weight of her impact. Every rebound she pulled down came in traffic, surrounded by defenders. Every assist was a lifeline, keeping Indiana's offense alive when the Dream tried to suffocate them. And what stood out the most was her poise. Remember, this is just her second season, yet she played with the maturity of a 10-year veteran. She knew exactly where to position her body, when to seal off her defender, and how to create just enough space for teammates to find daylight. In a game where Indiana could have easily been bullied inside, Boston flipped the script. She showed that the Fever's future isn't just promising, it's already here. And in a playoff atmosphere dripping with pressure, she carried herself like a cornerstone superstar. Sometimes the biggest plays don't come from the highlight reel, they come from the hustle no one expects. And that's exactly what Natasha Howard delivered for Indiana in this do-or-die game. If Aliyah Boston was the anchor and Kelsey Mitchell the engine, Howard was the spark that kept the Fever's fire burning when fatigue and foul trouble threatened to smother them. Over and over, she made plays that don't always show up in the box score, but completely shift momentum. A loose ball bouncing toward Atlanta's guards, Howard dove across the hardwood to wrestle it back. A rebound that seemed destined to slip away. She extended her reach, keeping the possession alive. Those extra chances were priceless in a game where every basket mattered. Her hustle was contagious. You could see teammates feeding off her energy, matching her intensity, refusing to let possessions die. And that's the beauty of Howard's game. She doesn't need to be the star or demand the spotlight. She does the dirty work, the gritty plays that championship teams are built on. In a series marred by injuries, it was Howard's relentlessness that reminded everyone watching that Indiana wasn't just surviving. They were fighting tooth and nail to seize history. And in those chaotic moments where the game could tip either way, Howard's effort made sure the Fever stayed standing tall. Odyssey Sims may not have started this season with the Indiana Fever, but in Game 3 she played like she had been born for this moment. Let's paint the picture. You're a veteran guard, parachuted into a team ravaged by injuries, asked to steady the ship in the most pressure-filled game of their season. Most players would need weeks to settle in. Sims had minutes, and she didn't just fill a role, she took command. With 16 points and 8 assists, Sims was the unpredictable weapon Atlanta had no real answer for. Every time she touched the ball, she attacked the defense with aggression, driving straight into contact, forcing the dream to collapse, and creating opportunities for her teammates. But it wasn't just her scoring.
We've just been through so much this season, giving ourselves another chance in Game 3. Emotions are high.
Back up, and
this is a group
immediately went at them again.
Really never
you could
wavered.
hear it in the way
This
she
group
directed
has
traffic on
continued to
offense,
show their heart
keeping
and
younger
their
players
character,
calm
night
in
in
an
and night
environment
out.
designed to rattle them.
No different.
That's
Somebody
leadership
has
on
to
the
lose or
fly.
somebody has
And for
to win.
Indiana,
Imagine
a
living
team
through
stretched
nearly 10
thin and
years
gasping
with no
for
playoff
answers,
series win.
Sims brought grit, poise,
kind
and
of drought
creativity.
doesn't just sit on
In
a
a
stat
hostile
sheet.
arena,
It
she
weighs on a
refused to let the
franchise,
noise
its
dictate
fan
the
base,
outcome.
and
She
every
reminded
player who
everyone
wears the
why
jersey.
veterans matter in the
The last time
postseason,
the
not just
Indiana
for
Fever
stats,
advanced
but for the
this far,
steadiness they bring when the
Tamika
game
Catchings
feels
was
like
still
it's
the heart
about
of
to
the team.
spiral.
Natasha
Odyssey
Howard
Sims
was
didn't
just
just play
beginning
her
her
role,
career.
she
And
elevated an
Stephanie
entire
White was the
team.
one
In the
coaching from the
chaos of
sidelines
playoff
during her
basketball,
first
it's
stint as
often
head
the
coach.
stars who get the spotlight.
That was
But in
2015,
Indiana's miracle
and the
win,
league looked
the unsung
completely
heroes
different.
were just as vital.
Fast forward
Enter
to now,
Breonna Turner
and
and
the
Ariel
Fever stepped
Powers,
into a
two
Game
players
3
who weren't
that wasn't
expected to
simply
swing
about
the game,
basketball.
yet
It
delivered
was
when the
about
Fever
history
needed
testing
them
them
most.
again.
Turner was a defensive wall. She contested shots, clogged passing lanes, and disrupted Atlanta's rhythm with anticipation that came from pure preparation.
Well, I think anytime
she
that
didn't
you're
need touches or headlines.
a win-or-go-home
Her impact was
situation,
measured in
there's
stops
desperation.
that kept Indiana
And so
alive.
it has to
Then there
carry
was
over.
Ariel Powers,
I know we're
a
in the
player
same situation.
who
Our
only
back is
logged
against the
limited
wall.
minutes, but made them
We've got to come
unforgettable.
out and we've got to
She
play
dove
with that
on the
sense of
floor for
urgency.
loose
We've got to
balls,
play with that
fought through
hunger.
screens with defiance,
We've got to
and brought an
value
intensity that
every single
elevated everyone
possession and
around
every
her.
single
You
opportunity.
could feel the
What made the
momentum
moment
shift
even
when
more
she entered the
pressing was the
game.
state
The
of their
bench grew
roster.
louder, the defense got
Think about
tighter,
this.
and the Fever's energy
Caitlin
spiked.
Clark sideline,
These are the kinds
Sophie
of
Cunningham
contributions
out,
that don't always
Sydney
make the
Colson
highlight
unavailable,
packages, but absolutely
Chloe Bibby,
decide playoff
Ari
series.
McDonald,
Turner and Powers
Damiris
embodied
Dantas,
the very
all
heart
on
of
the injury
Indiana's
list.
identity.
That's an enormous
Selflessness,
chunk of
grit, and
experience and
readiness.
scoring power
And in a
stripped
game where
away.
6 key players were
Suddenly,
sidelined,
this
their
wasn't
willingness
just
to
another
step into
playoff
bigger
night.
shoes wasn't
It
just
was win or
helpful,
go home,
it was
with a
essential.
group that had to
Without
stretch
them,
every bit of
Indiana
talent and
doesn't
chemistry
survive
just
those
to
critical
compete.
stretches.
No
With
one
them,
outside
the
that
Fever
locker room
proved
was
that this
putting
run
money on
wasn't
it.
just about stars.
In a way,
It was about a
that
team
vacuum
where
of
every single
expectation
player
became their
mattered.
advantage.
Lexie
They had
Hull's
no
night
choice
was the
but to
perfect
fight.
example of why
Now, this
perseverance
one on
matters in
Lexie
sports.
Hull got
For
me
most of
riled up
Game
because
3,
this was
Hull
early
looked
on
like
in the
she was
game,
trapped
and this
in a
was
nightmare.
probably the
Shot
best
after
defense that
shot
Lexie
clanged off
could
the
have
rim.
played.
Open looks
If you
refused
watch
to
this
fall.
play here,
You could
Ryan
see the
Howard is going
frustration
down.
creeping
Lexie
in.
Hull's
Her
guarding
shoulders
her.
tightening,
Ryan goes
her face
behind her
trying not to
back.
show it,
Lexie
but her
doesn't touch her
confidence
because she's
clearly
backpedaling
tested.
the whole
In a
time. She has her
playoff
hands straight up. Like,
atmosphere
this is
that's unforgiving,
really
most
good
players would
defense that
disappear,
Lexie
but
played
Hull
here.
didn't. She
And
kept
remember how
playing
Game 1
defense,
went down?
kept hustling,
A
kept
parade of
herself
phantom
locked into the
whistles,
game even while the
momentum-killing
scoreboard
calls,
mocked her
and a
efforts.
technical foul
And
on
then
their
when the
coach.
Fever needed her most,
The frustration
everything
in that
changed.
building wasn't
With
hard to
under
spot.
30 seconds left,
Even on
and
television, it
Indiana
was glaring.
trailing, Kelsey
Those
Mitchell's
players
drive
didn't forget.
tied the game and
They
set up
carried
one
that
last
bitterness
possession.
and turned it
The
into
ball
fuel.
swung around,
It
and
was
there
about
Hull
restoring
was,
their name
wide
after being
open.
robbed
The
of a
same
fair
shot
shot
she had
just
missed all
nights
night.
earlier.
Only this time, she
Indiana
buried it.
Fever
That
are
three
headed
wasn't
to
just
the
a basket. It was
semifinals.
redemption, the kind of moment that
Driving
rewrites
to the
a
foul
player's
line,
story
in
in
the
a
paint,
single
lays it
heartbeat.
in.
But she wasn't finished. On
Sims,
Atlanta's final
crossover left
inbound,
to right,
Hull
gets out
read
of
the
the
pass
paint. Layup,
perfectly,
good.
lunged into the lane, and came away with the game-sealing steal. One shot, one steal. After an entire night of struggles, she delivered the defining
Inside,
plays of the
Boston.
series. That's not just basketball
Pre-game
IQ.
interviews
That's
told the
mental
story
toughness
before
at
a
its
single
purest
basket
form.
was made.
Hull turned what looked like
Kelsey
her worst
Mitchell
game
looked
into
calm,
the moment Fever
focused,
fans will never
as if she
forget.
already
From
knew she'd have to
frustration to
shoulder the
hero.
scoring.
That's the stuff legends are
Aliyah
built
Boston
on.
spoke
What
quietly,
made
but
this
with a
win so
confidence that
powerful felt
contagious.
wasn't just the box
Prepared
score.
for an
It was the
inside
unity
battle she
behind
couldn't
it.
shy away
This
from.
wasn't 12 individuals
Facing
playing
an
basketball.
Atlanta squad fully
This was
healthy,
a family
riding
fighting
home
together
court
for
momentum.
survival.
6
You
critical
could see it in the
injuries
way every
and the
player,
belief that
even
they
the
just
ones
couldn't break
sidelined,
through.
poured themselves into
And
the
in
game.
that storm, they
Caitlin
made their
Clark,
choice.
unable to
They
suit up,
chose fight
spent the night
over
on the
fear.
bench, waving towels,
Which leads
shouting
to the real
instructions,
question,
and
could
hyping her
single
teammates
moments
with
from
the same
individual players
intensity
be
as if
enough
she
to
were on
turn
the
all
floor.
those years of
Injured
waiting into a
veterans like
brand new
Sophie
story?
Cunningham and Sydney
Anytime
Colson weren't
Atlanta
just
needs a bucket, they
spectators.
look to
They
her,
were
and she's
advisors,
wanting the
motivators,
ball as well with the
steady
last
voices
score
in
for
the
Atlanta.
huddles.
Aerial
That's what
Powers was the
separates
spark
good
plug.
teams from great ones.
She only played limited
Indiana
minutes,
didn't
but
fracture
those
under the weight
stretches
of
changed
injuries or bad
Indiana's
whistles.
energy.
Instead,
Diving
they
on the
leaned
floor,
into each other.
fighting through
And when the
screens,
final buzzer
injecting
sounded,
pace
the
into
locker room
possessions.
scene proved it.
She made
Kelsey
teammates
Mitchell
raise their
holding her
level simply by
teammates
the way
tight,
she carried
unable to
herself.
contain her joy.
It's hard
Aliyah
to measure
Boston
hustle
sitting
beyond the
quietly,
box score,
tears in
but
her
what
eyes
she
as
did
the
was
history of the
palpable.
moment sank in.
Players started
Lexie
chattering
Hull
louder
clutching
on
the
defense.
game ball like a
The
treasure
bench
she
grew
had
more
earned through
animated,
fire.
and
For
momentum
Turner
seemed
and
less
Sims,
fragile when she was on the
veterans who
floor.
had bounced from team to team,
Another one
this wasn't
of the
just a win,
signees
it was
because of
validation.
injuries
The
in the
Fever
game.
celebrated not as survivors of an
As we
upset,
approach a
but as
minute
a
to go,
family that had
Aerial
finally broken a
Powers
decade-long curse together. This
The
wasn't
ball
luck,
to
this was
all
love
the
for the
injured
game,
players
love for
to
each
not
other,
just
and love
cheerlead,
for
but
the
also to
fight.
give advice
And now the
to all the
celebration
newbies.
must turn into preparation. Because waiting for the
Big
Indiana
block by
Fever in the next
Powers.
round is a
Good
juggernaut.
outside by
The
Aerial
reigning
Powers.
champions, the Las
Possession by
Vegas
possession,
Aces. This
Indiana
isn't just the next step in the
are on the
playoffs.
doorstep
This is a
of
clash
making the
between destiny and
semifinals.
dynasty. The Aces
Let's
are
call
stacked
this
with
what it
stars.
was.
Aja
A
Wilson,
gut-check
Chelsea
challenge.
Gray, Kelsey
Win
Plum,
or go
players
home.
who thrive under pressure
6
and
players
punish every
down,
mistake.
angry
On
from
paper, this
officiating
matchup looks
controversies,
unfair.
and with
The
zero
Fever are
margin for
battered,
error.
bruised, and short-handed,
Indiana
while
Fever
Las
take
Vegas
that
comes
heat
in
and
healthy
deliver?
and confident.
They just
But
proved
here's
it in
the
Game
twist.
3 of the
Indiana
WNBA
has already
Playoffs
shattered
against
every
the Atlanta
expectation.
Dream.
They weren't
With
supposed
Kelsey
to survive
Mitchell attacking
Atlanta.
late,
They weren't
Aliyah
supposed to win a
Boston
playoff
grinding in the
series
paint,
after 12
and
long
Lexie
years
Hull
of waiting.
making the play
Yet
of her
here they
life.
are, and that
They
makes them
met the
dangerous.
challenge head-on and
Teams with
advanced to
nothing
the
to lose
semifinals for
often
the
play
first
with
time
the
since
freest, fiercest
2015.
energy. And after
So here's
watching
the
this
real
group
question.
overcome every
Was this a
obstacle, do you
one-time
really
spark,
think they'll back
or
down
the
now?
moment that
No
cements the
chance.
Fever's rise
For
for
the
years
Aces,
to
this
come?
series is about
Let us
defending their
know
throne.
down in the
For the
comments
Fever,
below
it's
how
about
proud
proving
you
that
are
this
of the
run is not a
Indiana
fluke.
Fever.
It's
Let's
the
go.
start of something real.
We've just
Win or
been through so
lose,
much this
Indiana
season,
has
giving
already
ourselves another
changed the
chance in Game 3.
conversation.
Emotions
They've
are high.
reignited a franchise,
This is a group that's
galvanized a
confidence has
fan
really
base,
never
and
wavered.
written
This
themselves
group has
into
continued to
WNBA
show
history.
their heart,
But
their
if they can
character,
pull off the
night in and
impossible
night out.
again, if they can
No
dethrone the
different.
Aces,
Somebody
then
has
this
to lose and
Cinderella
somebody has
story
to
will
win.
transform
Imagine
into
living
one of the
through nearly
greatest
10
playoff
years
runs
with
the
no
league has
playoff
ever
series
seen.
win.
And make no mistake,
That kind of drought
this
doesn't
team
just
believes
sit on a
it's
stat
possible.
sheet. A Fever advanced this far.